Hey, you beautiful beings. Welcome back to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. I am your host. And wow, are we in for a good episode today? I have been absent for the last 2 weeks. I know it, I see it, I feel it. There has been a lot of personal stuff going on in my life, some of which I am going to express here today in this episode. You know that we are all about leaning into our edge and transforming hard conversations into teachable moments. This episode will be no different. I'm going to give you a true story. It's going to be from my life. I've titled it something along the lines of, I'm learning how to be the crazy ex. And I say that playfully because I don't feel like a crazy ex. But in this story that I'm about to tell you, I can absolutely see if you were a stranger looking at only pieces of this, or someone who was only told pieces of this, I probably look crazy as hell. Yeah. But I am going to give you the fullest version that I can on this podcast, right? Because I really do want you to have a takeaway. And it's not about me telling you all the dramatic pieces of what happened. It's about me giving you a real human scenario in which you can put yourself into one or more shoes of the characters involved, and you can transform a hard, uncomfortable situation and a conversation, right, into a teachable moment. So grab a journal or a really good friend to dialogue with about what comes up for you in this episode. We're going to be exploring a question today, as we do in all episodes. Now, typically, because this is Empowered Human, I'm trying to work with people to understand how to move from powered ways of engaging to empowered ways of engaging. Yes, powered ways of engaging, which are very much about a binary dynamic. Someone's got to be right and someone's got to be wrong. And empowered ways of engaging, which say that actually there are multiple truths involved in any given moment. And how do we build a bridge between the differences? Not worth more or worth less, but the differences, right? How do we get on the same page and move forward? So the question that I have for you in this episode is actually not how do you move from powered to empowered, but in what situation is it appropriate for you to transition from empowered to powered? That's actually the story that I'm going to call myself in on today, because I did have an empowered to powered moment that I'm going to share with you. Very, very rare that I share these on the show because they very, very rarely occur. And so, I'm going to be sharing that with you. That's the question, right? When is it okay? When is it appropriate maybe for me to consider moving from empowered to powered? My answer in a nutshell is this: when one or more parts of the system is being harmed, it may be appropriate for you to move from an empowered to a powered move. Now, I'm not there. I don't know the context of your situation. However, when we move into a powered place, we are willing to do something that actually says to somebody else that they are not doing something, and that in fact what they're doing may be harming someone else. So grab a journal or that good friend, like I mentioned earlier, right? We're going to explore, we're going to lean into our edge, and we're going to play with a hard moment and hopefully make it quite teachable. But before I go into my usual spiel, there's one more thing I have to tell you. I know, so much talking, but just hear me out here. This is one of the last few episodes of the podcast. I'm going to be pausing it for a while to focus on the book. I know for my long-term listeners, you already know this. I'm going to be focusing on the book because the podcast really does allow me moments to share with you, for us to lean into our edge and transform hard conversations into teachable moments. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you longevity. It doesn't teach you, in one fell swoop about the framework and that underlies this, right? About the empowered human lifestyle and the core values that we have and how that, can lean into your adventure challenge, right? I do the best I can to share about our core values of courage, healing, and belonging, and about the framework of the empowered human lifestyle, and to give you adventure challenges in every episode. And you will have them in this episode too. I do the best that I can. It's not enough, right? It's not enough because it's not all in one spot. I want you to basically have the empowered human journey in a manuscript in your hands so that you can explore it and expand upon it in your own life. So I say this with excitement to you. This is one of the last few episodes before we pause the podcast so that I can focus on giving you something that I believe will be more effective and then I come back to the podcast. Maybe we'll see what happens, right? No, I hope to come back, but I'm not a fortune teller. So I told you it was going to be short and sweet. That's my announcement for the empowered human world. You can still follow me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina, where I will be actually increasing my social engagement since I'm not going to be doing the podcast as much. So I say this sending you so much love. I'm excited for the transition. A little trepidation is present as well, right? A little apprehension, a little fear, but ultimately I am excited for the next step in the journey. So without further ado, you know that at this point, we're about to launch into this episode and I am so curious. Are you ready to play? Welcome to Empowered Human, the dramatically playful podcast that invites you to heal humanity, the one within you, me, and the world at large. I'm your host, drama therapist, empowerment specialist, and not to mention empowered human, Nina Garcia, and I'm so stoked you're joining me on the journey. Every Wednesday, you are invited to explore transforming from powered to empowered with genuinely human stories of courageous existence, healing from invalidation, and truly belonging to you. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from empowerment curious to empowered human ambassador, this podcast is designed to humanize. Get ready to lean into your edge, heal your worldview, and finally belong to you. This is Empowered Human. Let's take a breath on in, expanding and expressing whatever you need in this moment. Before you exhale it all out and down. Ooh, that was a good exhale, y'all. Welcome back. Welcome back. This episode is going to be titled something along the lines of I'm learning how to be the crazy ex, right? I have a real story that I'm going to give to you. And when this happened, afterward, when I shared it with my partner was like, were you afraid? And I was like, I think fear is what most people would have felt, but instead what I felt was sad. I felt sad that this moment had to happen at all. And so I've processed through some of my feelings about that. It happened at least 2 weeks ago at this point. And I really needed that time to process. It's why we didn't have some episodes, because it caused so much dysfunction in my life. I'm going to tell you that story, and I'm going to call that story Caregiver Withholding. And the character who's going to be playing the caregiver is, we're going to call them Carrie. And now I'm going to launch in, yes, with some context. It was a Thursday when I got back from an out-of-country trip. I had been away from my child for 7 days. For those of you who don't know, I'm a single mom of a small child at this point, just getting out of those toddler years. And 7 days I'd been away out of country, got back on a Thursday and knew she was at school, wanted to give her a call afterward. It was her day with her dad, and I wanted to give her a call and just check in on her, just say, hey, I missed my baby. I had been in a place where I actually did not have service to be able to call or message. So I was really looking forward to speaking with her. So I wait until I see that she's been picked up. I get a notification on my phone from the school and it says, hey, your child's been picked up. And I think, great, let me give them a call. So I give them a call, right? The person who's supposed to be watching my child. And I don't get a response. So I just send a text message to both my ex-husband and the caregiver. And I say, hey, just give me a call back when you guys have a minute. No response. Not concerning though, right? I'm thinking it was just a few minutes after she's picked up. They're busy right now. They'll get back to me later. But they don't. An hour goes by, 2 hours goes by, 2.5 hours go by. And I send a message this time and I go, hey, I'm going to call in a few minutes, right? It's a little around 7:25 at this point. I send and I say, hey, to both of them, I'm going to give her a call in a few minutes. And then I call. This is my 4th outreach at this point, right? For those of you who are counting, 4th outreach just to try to reach my child. No response. Still, not even a text message. My anxiety at this point is increasing. There's no frustration just yet. It's anxiety. I send a fifth message trying to get a hold of my child. And the fifth message says, I am alarmed. Why have I not heard back from my kid? Can someone please let me know what's going on over there? Do you think I get a response after this? Oh man, I wish I had. It would have been so much simpler if I had just received a text message with something letting me know that my kid was okay. Anything. Nina, we're at the movies. Hey, Nina, we're super busy. Hey, Nina, she can't talk. Hey, Nina, she doesn't want to talk. Anything about my kid to let me know that they'd received the message, that they were there, that my kid was okay. That's the core, right, essence of everything. Would have been just fine. But I get nothing. So now what we have in this story is not just an anxious mother. We have a mother who's now anxious and frustrated that nobody has gotten back to her. An anxious mother who's worried, why after hours and hours of outreach can I not get a hold of my kid? It's scary. It's scary that I had to send a message saying I was alarmed. Could somebody let me know? And I still got nothing. I get in my car and I drive over there because somewhere in here, my ex-husband lets me know he's not there. It's just the caregiver. My ex-husband is out of state. He had not let me know this before, but now I know. And I think, I don't know why the caregiver is not getting a hold of me. Maybe something is wrong. I go over there. I knock on the door. I knock again on the door. I knock and I knock and I knock. And I can hear from their doorbell a voice inside. And at first I thought it was a man's voice inside here. And then my anxiety increases because all I hear is a man's voice say, there's somebody at the door. And I think, oh my God, this caregiver is in here with another man. Where is my kid? Where's my kid? My anxiety is increasing, right? I ring the doorbell again and I realize my anxiety diminishes a little. I realize it's an automated voice on the other side. It's an automated voice. The doorbell is just letting the people inside know, hey, again and again, right? There's somebody at the door. This is a small apartment, right? Not a big house. They should definitely be able to hear me. All of a sudden, and by all of a sudden, I mean after 2 minutes of knocking and not getting a response, I get a message from my ex and it says, hey, she was put to bed and the caregiver, Carrie, didn't see any of your calls or messages until just now. And so sorry that you didn't get to talk with her today, but you can speak with her tomorrow. Now at this point, I'm lit. You're going to tell me that I sent multiple messages, drove over here, and I'm knocking on the door, and you're going to tell me for 2 minutes, right? Knocking on the door that my child is asleep and I should believe you? Right after I read this, I message you back, open the door or I will call the police. I am genuinely concerned for my child's welfare at this point. Nobody has sent me a picture, a video, nothing. And only after I've knocked on the door do I finally get a text message after I'm physically present. Why wouldn't you open the door for the mother of this child? These are the things that are going through my head as I am so concerned about the welfare of my kid. And let's be clear at this point, I'm lit. The door opens. And I'm not going to lie to you. I storm on in as she opens the door. And I say, where's my kid? Where's my kid? Imagine my surprise when I don't hear that my kid is sleeping. She's awakened in the bath. What? Now, I'm smiling here with y'all, but I hope on YouTube you can see the tension in my face and in my body. And if you're listening via podcast, I know you can hear it in my voice. I was lit. How are you going to lie to the mother of this child as she was there, concerned about the welfare of the child, lying as she's standing outside the door? I could see why there would be many reasons why you might want to lie. And they're all self-centered reasons because it has nothing to do with that beautiful baby. So I walk in and I turn around and I ask, where's my kid, right? She says, in the bath, get out of my house. And I ask her, what is going on? I ask her to lower her voice because she's yelling at me as if I've done something wrong. It's laughable. And I won't tell you all the nitty-gritty details because I'm definitely downplaying the situation, y'all. Definitely. It was not a good situation. But then imagine my surprise when I, this concerned mother, just trying to make sure my kid is okay, says to Carrie, the caregiver, you have to respond to me. You can't withhold my child. A failure to get back to me is a failure to respond. It is a failure by the child, right? By you standing by the child, right? Just so I'm clear on that. Carrie don't want to hear it. Carrie gets on the phone and says, all I hear is, somebody just pushed past me into my apartment. I need you here. Now I think, snap, crackle, pop, is Carrie trying to call the police on me after she didn't respond for hours and then didn't want to open the door and then lied and said my child was asleep when she was awake? Is that what's happening right now? Y'all, I was floored. I understand they were playing with this and we're trying to transform a hard conversation into a teachable moment, but to say that I was hurt and felt betrayed by this would be an understatement. I was disgusted by this. This was a twisting by Carrie to make the situation worse, because if you were listening really carefully on what I just said, Carrie said into the phone, someone just pushed past me and is in my apartment. I need you here. As if Carrie didn't know who I was. As if I was a stranger who had burst into her apartment from the street. Carrie is amping up the drama when what would have been really straightforward and solved all of this would have been for Carrie to just call the mother of a child back. That's it. If Carrie were too busy, a text message would have done. Instead, Carrie made a choice to ignore a really important part of this system, which is the mom of a kid. Now, again, I am definitely underplaying this story. When I tell you I was lit, I was lit. And then the second I walked in, calmed myself down, looked around, very quiet voice. Where is my kid? As Carrie, the caregiver's yelling, right? Came in really intentionally. Because I know that there's a kid there. I know that I don't want to scare her. And I know that this is not about me. So, with that said, I'm going to pause the story there. And I'm actually going to ask you to do that thing I said at the beginning, and I really want you to put yourself in the shoes of any of the characters here. You can choose to put yourself in the mom's characters, right, in Nina's shoes. You can choose to put yourself in Carrie's shoes, right? You can choose to put yourself in the kid's shoes, right? Wherever you go, really ask yourself, what is the transparent issue here? What is the transparent issue? This is one of your golden nuggets for today's episode, because we are going to be talking about transparency, responsibility, and accountability. What is the transparent issue here? Transparent issues go like this. Both parties, right, in the case of Nina and Carrie, both parties have to agree that this was an issue. So a transparent issue that we could pull from the situation might be that the mother and the caregiver disagreed on the communication surrounding a child. That would be a transparent issue. They disagreed on the communication. The mother felt that the call or message should have been responded to when it came to the child, and the caregiver felt it wasn't worth her time. Or maybe the caregiver was busy. Whatever it was, something would have had to have been communicated to build that bridge, and instead, the caregiver gave no response. So what did the mother do? still try to figure out what's happening around the communication of the child. Yeah? So the transparent issue, mother and caregiver disagree on the communication surrounding this child. Both of them could say, yes, we definitely disagreed on that. Now you have to ask yourself, in whichever character you've chosen, what was the responsibility of that character? What was the responsibility of that character? Responsibility is thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. They are the only things that you can control. You cannot be responsible for somebody else's behaviors or thoughts or feelings. You can help hold them accountable, which we'll get to in a minute, but you cannot be responsible for them. So whichever character you chose, what were your responsibilities, right? To walk this back, when we think about my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, I thought something is going on and I'm concerned about my child. I felt anxious about this. How did I behave? I reached out several times to try to discern what was happening. This wasn't like a one and immediate go to 0 to 100, right? As you heard, over 5 times I reached out until I physically showed up to make sure that my kid was okay. Those are my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, trying to reach out, trying to be responsible. I expressed, I am alarmed, explicitly wrote that. I am alarmed. Can someone please let me know what's going on, right? That's my responsibility to let them know that's where I'm feeling, that's where I'm at, so that they can make an informed decision on how to respond to me, on how to deal with this part of the system. If you chose Carrie the caregiver, right, what would have been your responsibilities as a caregiver of a child? Would you have said, it's my responsibility to respond to the mother? It's my responsibility to ensure that the person reaching out, right, any parent, right, reaching out for this child knows they're in good health, right? What is the responsibility, right? The thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors there. And after the mother shows up, right, really asking yourself, and without judgment, right, if you're Carrie, what is really going on? Is this fear and anxiety, right? Because Carrie was yelling back at me, right, once I got there. What is that really about? Is this about the mother and the kid, or is this about some story that Carrie has created? Because for Carrie to walk out and say someone pushed past me and is in my home is very concerning. It says to me that Carrie doesn't see the mother as the mother of that child. Carrie sees Nina, in this case, as a stranger. That's very concerning for me. Very concerning. So maybe you chose to be the kid in this one. You're like, wow, what are the kids' responsibilities in this, right? Simply to be a kid, right? Simply to be a kid. For better or worse, children are in our care. You know, I can't be responsible for what my child does or doesn't do, or when she is or isn't available when she's in someone's care, but I can try to hold her and others accountable, right? I can reach out, I can offer resources, I can do these. These are accountabilities. Accountability is when something outside of you is helpful to hold you responsible. So in this case, it was my responsibility to share how I was feeling and that I wanted to know that my child was okay. But the accountability piece came in every message I shared to let them know, every call or voicemail that I might have left, anything that you do that says, hey, I am asking you to do this, that is you trying to hold them accountable. So responsibility, you share your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, or you own your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Accountability, trying to get somebody to tap in on their responsibility. So me asking them, can you please call me back? That's me trying to say, hey, I was responsible and made the call for the kid, let you know that I'm looking to get a hold of them. Now, can you hold yourself accountable by actually calling me back? Can you do that, right? That's not what happened in this story. But if we were to dial back, no matter which character you choose, what would have been the easiest thing? The easiest thing would have been to respond in any way, shape, or form, right? Any way, shape, or form. But that's actually not what we're talking about, right? That's my own stuff where I'm like, oh, this would have been the easiest thing. This would have been the easiest thing to empower the system. Today's episode is being able to recognize when are the times when you need to transition from empowered to powered. If I had to do this situation again, if I reached out to my child and Carrie, the caregiver, decides not to respond, I would just go over there with the police and I would just say, I need a welfare check on this child. I've reached out 5 times and have not heard back that they are okay. Can you please just do a welfare check? That would have been yet another way to try to empower the system by letting them know, if you guys don't let me know, I'm going to have to call the police, which is what I did in this case too. But the door was open and I was let in. I was let in and I was able to make sure that my child was, in fact, okay. This was just a human to human moment that was incredibly difficult, messed me up for a while after that. So, with that said, we've given you the story. I've broken down for you transparency, responsibility, accountability, because when you have conflict with another human being, that TRA formula can be super helpful for you to be able to explore what's really going on here and how can we get this to not happen again. I had an audience member, a listener, ask me this past week, Nina, are you making sure to address your stuff? Are you making sure to address the things that you do? And in every episode, I do, right? We offer compassion and grace as well, right? We're not a big fan of cancel culture in the empowered human world. But when I sit in a situation like this, right? And the handle out there, right? This is you, Noko Sarah. When I sit in a situation like this, having reached out over 5 times as the mother of a child before I have to physically show up to ensure their well-being, which feels to me like a powered move. It does. It feels to me like a powered move. I can be honest about that and say, I've done the work to make sure that I reached out and communicated what I needed or wanted before that, before I had to transition to that powered space. I tried to empower the system, and the system, Carrie in this case, still chose to withhold something from the rest, right? To potentially cause harm or not clarify that there was no harm. So yes, an important part of the empowered human world is that we are calling ourselves in and that we are doing the work. And when I sit in this position and say, I reached out that many times, I don't feel bad about showing up over there as a mother. I don't. Even if it frightened Carrie, at this point, I have no compassion for Carrie. All I had was a worried mother who had reached out several times to try to figure out if my baby was okay. So while I wish that situation had gone down differently, I have definitely worked through and processed it. The next time that this would happen, I would absolutely loop in the police, do a welfare check. But what I would rather is that we all consider, how do you empower systems? You cannot have it be just your truth. You don't exist in a vacuum. You don't exist in a vacuum. I can't imagine being the mother who would have said, wow, I reached out 5 times to the caregiver of my child and they didn't get back to me, so I just decided to go to sleep. I'm sure they're fine. Listen, if you're that mother, no judgment, I have to imagine that you must really trust your caregiver then. This caregiver has created fake Instagram accounts against me, still in existence, has gone out of her way to make my life more miserable by trolling my accounts. This caregiver has not earned compassion from me anymore. I've tried to be really compassionate. And I believe after this that I have very little, if anything, left to offer. I'm trying to work on building that back up because they are a caregiver of my child and because my child cares about them. That is my own personal work to do. And if you are out there in a situation in which somebody has done something similar, held something from you, hidden something from you, and you've just found that out, and you feel betrayed and you feel hurt and you feel sad that they feel like they had to do that at all, really being able to explore what can you be responsible for in your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, And what are they actually responsible for in their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors? Everybody has responsibilities. Excuse me. Everybody has them. Are you being responsible for yours? So at the end of the episode, I always like to give you adventure challenges, and this episode is going to be no different. Now, I have walked you through a real story in a real human being's life. I have only given you my perspective, which is really all I can give you, yes? So you take what you can with a grain of salt. Everything that doesn't work for you, you just throw it away, right? I don't know the context of your situation. So when we come into answering this question of when is it appropriate to move or transition from an empowered way to a powered way, the answer in a nutshell that I gave you was when something is harming the system, right? When something is harming the system and or refuses to stop harming the system, right? It's like not learning a lesson or whatever the case may be here. That may be the time for you to transition from empowered to powered, but really, folks, you've got to be discerning. This wasn't a 0 to 100 moment that you noticed me share here, right? And I know I've said that before, but it begs saying again, right? It's so worth hearing again and again. Use your discernment. You cannot go from 0 to 100. 5 times I reached out with 0 response. Even after I physically showed up, 2 minutes knocking on that door, no response from anyone within, right? There was an escalation of things that led to me actually having to show up at that door and utilize what I would consider to be a powered move for the safety of the system, right? So use your discernment. Know that you have XYZ empowered moves that you have done, right? Before you move into that powered space. That's essentially what I am trying to offer you in this episode. And because no human being is perfect, yes, a little grace for everyone in this, right? I think it can definitely be said that no one had a good time in this story. So, with that said, adventure challenges, they work like this. I typically give them to you in 3 tiers, right? From the bottom on up to the top, what we're looking at is self-awareness, self-knowledge, and self-realization. Self-awareness is basically the thought that you're like, oh, now I'm aware of what is happening here. I'm aware of that. Self-knowledge is now I know how I feel about what I'm aware of, right? From thoughts to feelings. And now that you know how you feel, you move into self-realization. You say, but this is actually what I want to do about it. Realization is about your actions. So thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, that's typically how I move up. Now, because we talked about transparency, responsibility, and accountability in this episode, that's actually the tool that I want you to use. I want to invite you, dare I say it, to do an entire chart. I'm going to have my assistant actually put it in the show notes so that you can click it. It's a 1-pager, the TRA. Fill in what's a transparent issue that you're having right now. What's a transparent issue? Remember, both of you would have, right? Both parties would have to agree that this is the issue. If there's multiple parties involved, you all gotta agree it's the same issue. So figure that out, right? Really do the work to figure out what's the transparent issue here. When you move to the next step, it's responsibilities. What are the responsibilities that you have when it comes to that transparent issue? And you've got to be really real with yourself. I'm not going to lie, right? You've got to be really real with yourself. In the case of my story, it would have been so much easier if I had just showed up at the place, showed up at the house and been like, hey, I just want to talk to my kid. The easiest thing. But would it have respected all parts of the system? No. It's a different caregiver that day for my kid. I tried to respect their time and their energy in the space, but it wasn't respected in return. And so things escalated. So we move on for responsibilities, right? Of what you can control. Can't control anybody else, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. What can you control that respects that you don't exist in a vacuum? There are other parts to the system, right? So responsibilities, that's what you're going to put in the second part. The third part is accountability. Accountability is what you can do to hold someone else accountable for their responsibilities. Does that make sense? Transparency, responsibility, accountability. I actually want to invite you not just to do this just 1 part or 2 parts or 3. I want to invite you to do all of the parts together. So that's actually your adventure challenge. Can you do a TRA 1-pager? You don't got to show me, but if you message it to me on Instagram, I'll look at it, y'all, okay? I know that we're playing with really hard things in here. And It's not always ha 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 funny, but I do want to say, especially because this will be some of our last episodes before I head out of here to write the book more formally than I have been, that it has been an honor and a privilege to be able to walk with you through these hard conversations. It has been an honor to share with you some of the more difficult moments of my life, and also a privilege to be able to walk through and do my own work while I'm sharing these things, right? I'm not a saint. I'm not a perfect person, but I'm also not an asshole, okay? I'm not creating fake accounts to troll people, okay? So with that said, are you accepting the adventure challenge this week? Are you leaning into the empowered human lifestyle? Are you choosing courage and healing and belonging? I'm working on them too. I'm not perfect, especially in this moment, y'all. I am still processing and working through a lot of those feelings, but you've got your adventure challenge. You know your TRA one pager. That is what I planned for you folks. So take care of yourself. Get empowered out there. Be wary about your powered moments. And I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being willing to explore healing your humanity on Empowered Human. I hope you found at least one new way to transform your worldview from powered to empowered. If you took something from the show, please take a moment of your time and subscribe to Empowered Human. And if it really nourished you, leave us a review. Your feedback helps me understand what our community needs. Not to mention, it helps others discover the empowered human life. So keep this last bit in mind. All the visual goodies come with me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina. Stay up to date there on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes goodness, and reels dropping knowledge. Thank you again for being part of the empowered human community. Until next time, stay curious.